Welcome, everybody, to Running Strong Mind Body Connection podcast. I'm your host, Karen Bonnett-Natraj. And this podcast was born from that deep belief that true strength doesn't come from pushing harder, it comes from aligning your mind, your body, your soul in flow, not in fight. So each week we dive into what it really means to live and lead from the inside out, with powerful tools to help you shift from self sabotage to self love, from anxiety to awesomeness, and from stress to sustainable success. So, you're going to hear inspiring stories, expert insights, and practical wisdom from runners, coaches, nutritionists, healers, and everyday warriors who faced challenges, found resilience, and claimed breakthrough in their own terms. So, whether you're chasing a finish line, recovering from burnout, or simply craving a deeper connection to your body, mind, and soul, this is your space to grow, laugh, heal, and run strong in every area of life. So, if you're ready to build your mental fitness, take that first step toward your peace, power, and presence. Go ahead and visit my website, themindfulathletecoach.com, and just take on my free gift there. And let's schedule a call and let's explore how we can rewire your brain. So if this message resonates with you, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and join me on YouTube at Running Strong Mind Body Connection. And if you or someone you know has a powerful story of mind body transformation, I'd love to hear from you. So let's keep building this community of strength, connection, and transformation. So let's dive in today. Today, my amazing guest is Jennifer Hough. She is a cosmic instigator. Yes, I said instigator. She's a cosmic instigator for visionary leaders and companies ready to stop circling their potential and actually live it. She's the #1 international best-selling author of Unstuck, an amazing TEDx speaker, and the founder of The Wide Awakening. Jennifer turns brain science and the physics of flow into rocket fuel for impact driven corporate, community, and badass leaders, helping them create wildly fulfilling lives, financial overflow, and movements that matter. She's worked in 35 countries, and her clients have generated over $200 million in results, and without selling their souls or playing small. So today we are welcoming Jennifer Hough, and I'm so glad to have you on our podcast today, Jennifer.
I am excited, Karen. We already have a relationship and it just thrills me to no end to like continue the yummy discussions we have through your podcast. Thanks for having me.
Yes. For what she says about that, Jennifer's been my mentor for, my gosh, over a year now, and has, my mental fitness journey and everything I've done. She's just taken me to the next level of consciousness. So,
Aw, shucks, girl. Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun working together because you're so passionate about what you're up to,
yep.
and that always begets some really juicy conversations in the land of physics.
So the land of physics. So, and how can you bring that into everyday knowledge of the people who may be listening to this podcast? And I think of physics. Oh my God, I don't understand physics.
Right. Well, as it pertains to, you know, when we talk about mindset, we're really talking about a form of epigenetics or psychoneuroimmunology, meaning meaning how the mind affects the body, how the mind affects the genetics, how the mind affects the biochemistry, and it for sure does. So on the physical level, so much has to do with our thinking. Yet at the same time, our physical is made of 75 trillion cells, which are made of 100 million atoms per cell.
You guys do the math.
That's a lot. And then those atoms have electrons and protons and neutrons. And those have magnetics and quarks and all sorts of fun gravitational forces in them. And that's all part of us.
Right.
And then there's the dark matter that apparently nobody understands. But we do know there are some laws of physics that really, if we were to master those, if we were to understand those, the laws that pertain to the subatomic spaces, if we were really to look at the smallest aspects of us, or the most invisible would be more accurate, the most invisible aspects of us, and what the laws are that govern those, then literally you would have mastery of life.
Right.
So, yeah. So we're looking at, some people might say, "Oh, she's talking about law of attraction." And I'm like, "Well, not as most people know it. Kinda, but not really." So, yeah.
It's when you say all those numbers and all those physics words and everything behind that, the atoms and neurons and protons and all this, I mean, just think about inside of our body. We're more visual people. We want to see it, but it's just imagining that's inside of our body and how that functions in our own overall health and well-being and
Yes.
the expansion of our own consciousness.
Yeah. Well, there's our consciousness, but when I think about the people that you address, Karen, um, when we start to understand, like, there's a few concepts I think that really apply. Okay. So imagine that the smallest, or the most invisible parts of us, they have a motion, and it's forward and out. Life is constantly going forward in the land of physics. So everything that was a second ago has already been created upon. And we are perfect avatars to represent that, because we don't stand still either. Whatever doesn't work in the now, we're always looking for solutions that are next, right?
Right.
So the foundations of the essence of what we're made of, those quantum physical particles, actually live through us in the very way we're wired. We always are looking to be inspired to the next, or we're these days we're being catalyzed an awful lot by polarity to solutions, or
Right.
we're staying in the same spot and basically arguing for our limitations. But just remember, I think it's really important to remember that we are wired, like the universe is wired. The particles, if you think about the original Big Bang, it means that there's an explosion of the guts of the universe, where the original atoms got sent on a forward momentum journey and created planets, and we're made of the same atoms. I know it's like a big conversation for a podcast where you're talking about performance and how the mind relates to the body,
Right.
but I want to say that you cannot be an optimal performer if you don't understand that finely tuning your thoughts and your mindset to be as expansive and forward moving and uh, possibility filled as the direction of the universe, is if you understand that that's what you're doing when you work on your mindset, you're also
Mhm.
aligning yourself with the actual foundations of the universe itself, which wants to create upon itself.
Right.
So I know you're running 100 miles soon, which could be said at any point
Tomorrow.
in your life. Yeah. Right. And so
It'll be done
you're,
by the time people listen to this podcast. I'll have another one lined up at the end of next month. So,
yeah.
this is the level that you're at just really bleeds into exactly what I'm doing too, is how our thoughts create our emotions and our feelings and
Yes.
then our actions. And so when we have that thought, in that moment, we manifest the outcome of that thought.
We do. We We do. We manifest the outcome of that thought, but how does that manifestation work? Well, based on your thought, there are the the particulate of the quantum field rearranges itself to not only what you're consistently and persistently thinking, but actually, more importantly, the second part of what you said, which is your mood or your emotional state that you end up in because of the thoughts that you're thinking, right?
Right.
So if you're like running and it's like, oh my God, my left calf hurts. It really hurts. Oh my gosh, my left calf.
Right.
Like, what's gonna do if I get a Charlie horse? What it blah, 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 and then you go
Exactly.
down the grease line, slippery slope to hell, right? And the thing is, you're gonna start creating by a biochemistry that is susceptible to more tension, which gives you more of a chance of getting the Charlie horse, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Hmm.
However, in the land of physics, so I only came to physics because I used to run the largest integrative health clinic in Canada. Right? That's how I came to it. I came to it through the biological,
Nice.
right? And so
Amazing.
what I realized after I studied physics was that something else was true, that actually we become magnetic based on the feelings that we feel to situations that might resolve, and resources and people that might resolve the very thing that we're worried about, because the contrast actually creates, through a law called entanglement, the solution and the problem can only exist at the same time. You can't have a solution without the problem. When you understand physics, you'd understand that the entire universe would implode upon itself. There, like that. See, it would implode upon itself. Yeah. By the way, that right there is physics. It's like, I talk about imploding and voila.
So you
Um,
guys, if you got to go to YouTube and watch this and see how Jennifer just
right.
imploded with the universe.
I just gave off fireworks from my head. But anyways, the what happens is that your mood gives you the frequency, like you're a radio station,
Yep.
and that the frequency that you receive at is based on your mood. So what happens is every problem's actually resulted, it hasn't resulted instantaneously. The solution has to exist.
Right.
Because the solution has to exist, you're not going to actually be on the radio station of those solutions unless you're actually deliberately choosing the thoughts that put you at a different place. Now, I'm going to use a caveat here, Karen, because choosing new thoughts in the moment is a very in the moment kind of a strategy.
Right.
I love I love it, and I love teaching, being able to help people embody an entirely different relationship to life, such that the thoughts that naturally come are always of a higher frequency. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
And even you and me working together are all about the evolution of the beingness, because if you can just be at a different frequency, the solutions and the evolutions and the well-being that you attract by changing your default frequency, your default emotional state,
Right.
all of a sudden now life becomes more miraculous as an entire new paradigm.
So I'm going to go through two things here just to top off what you said there. I know in my
Yeah.
mental fitness boot camp, I know in my program, people have changed their frequency based upon shifting their mind into the present
Mhm.
moment.
Right.
And I just had a testimonial from a current client who's been with me for like 4 years, five
Mhm.
years. And she just said, I have not even shown up in the hypervigilant and how peace and calm my mind has been.
Mhm.
The other thing you said, and this has to do a lot with shifting our thoughts. I'm my calf feels like it's getting a Charlie horse. I'm feeling it coming on. We are reinforcing that Charlie horse to happen. And people have said, and this is, this is very so simple. Well, someone comes up and talks to me and we're chatting along. I don't have any more awareness of my Charlie horse
Right. There you
because I
go.
mean, there's energy there. There's that because you're not focusing on that. And
Yeah.
so that, and exactly what you're saying is that changing that thought, changing that, which changes our perceptions and bringing that energy to a higher frequency.
Well, and I would say that in that moment, it's not about changing your thought because if you were left to your own devices, your consciousness wasn't able to change your thought.
Yes, right.
And so what happened is someone came along and distracted you.
Yep.
Now, from my point of view, that's a thing. I call that taking spaciousness breaks, right? So last night, I knew I had just finished talking to my accountant, all the things I had to do, oh my God, the stuff I mean, seriously, all the stuff I have to get to this guy, I cannot even tell you all the stuff I have to get to this guy. And it's urgent because here in Asheville, we have till, basically 10 days from now, right? Or less than that actually. And so it's urgent. It really is urgent. And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have so many things to do." And when you start to understand the laws of physics, you start to get that the solutions come because you take spaciousness. So what I
Yes.
ended up doing is I went to an event last night that was 3 hours long, and it was so cool. There was a dude speaking at the end of this event that is so inspirational. He's changing the face of healthcare for people with addictions.
Mm.
And so, particularly alcohol addiction, where a substance that was not ever legalized will be legalized. And I'm telling you, it gets rid of addiction. It's incredible. And this man is such a champion, and his story was so inspirational that, I felt supercharged and got a whole bunch when I got home. I didn't even care that I had to do accounting. I literally got so much done and sent so much because I got my frequency to a place where I felt better. And
Right.
I plan my spaciousness breaks because I know the alchemy that happens because I don't get so focused and myopic
Right.
about my life, which is very easy to do when you're running. I mean, I used to get migraines. I get it. When once you're in a migraine or a Charlie horse or a whatever, it's very hard not to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But now you understand the power of distraction and
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
planning the spaciousness, right?
But we have that when we discipline our minds, when we discipline, we can shift that. But it's sometimes it isn't, it's the power of being in the present moment, just the power of the PQ and the studies behind that, the neuroscience behind that,
Right.
of doing that habit over and over and over again every day. I mean, what takes 10 seconds? But it's reshifting, rewiring our brain to where now we're not reacting so aggressively into that
Yes.
negative thought. We're
Yes.
taking that and putting and being more into the acceptance and the response instead of falling down that rabbit hole.
Well, first of all, I want to change the word discipline because for a freedom seeker like me, and I suspect like you, there is a thing that happens when we use the word discipline. And so I'm going to suggest, just for kicks and giggles and fun, calling it blissipline. Because one of my dear friends, I was just on a recent interview series, and um, the woman that was interviewing me she's just so awesome, and she calls it blissipline. So I said, I'm gonna say that again. So anyhow,
Pass it on. I love
right.
that.
So some of how we change comes from just straight up practice, right? It's
Yes.
just straight up practice. But some of how we change doesn't come from practice. Sometimes we can make quantum leaps. and actually go to, I call those brain bridges,
Yep.
where you can convince your your left brain, the part of your brain that basically is made up neurosynaptic highways as governed by your amygdala, or the part of you that wants to prevent scary things from happening. Um, so your left brain starts making up, according to the instructions from the part of your brain that doesn't want scary or bad things happening,
Right.
makes up neurosynaptic highways and patterns and habits of thought that make sense at the time, right? It makes sense when you're 7 years old and maybe your dad's always yelling,
Yep.
and that you like the best thing to do when people are yelling is to go to your closet in your room and read a book,
Yep.
right? And so that instinct can still exist when you're 40,
Yep.
right? So, or 50 or 80.
At
And,
any age, yeah.
but that's not really freedom,
Right.
right? So, what we want to do is in an instant sometimes, in the land of neuroscience, it's said that it takes 21 days to change a habit like that, which is not true. You actually can change a habit like that in an instant if you tell a deep enough truth about what it is that is the trigger from your amygdala. And can I give an example of that?
I'd love that.
And the only reason I'm bringing this up, Karen, because in your audience, it's not really about the actual subject matter that it, like when I tell you a story of someone who we built a brain bridge for,
Right.
okay? When I tell you that, this isn't about running or doing triathlons or being a performance athlete, but I can tell you that the quantum leaping of the patterns that we create gives your body instantaneously, exponentially more access to your mitochondria, more access to, in other words, the energy producing part of your cell.
Yep.
It gets you out of the way of your ability of your cells to talk to each other. Hence, performance goes up. And I say this not as someone who hasn't worked with athletes or wasn't one herself. I still cycle, and I have worked with everything from junior A, hockey players to, several Florida triathletes who are at the top of their game. So, and I've seen this happen over and over and over again. When you actually get out of the way of some of the patterns that are governing you in an instant, that's another thing, because a whole chunk of energy drops in then. Even with golfers, I've seen some of my friends who are golfers do this work that I'm talking about called brain bridges. And one guy went down to a 3 handicap within, months of doing our work. So here's the dealio. Here's how it goes. Okay.
All right.
So I had this person sitting in front of me who was like, but my parents, they're so, you know, mean and reactive. And one of them was passive aggressive and the other one was not so passive and overt.
Right.
And so what it did to me is it made me very vigilant for other people bossing me around in a subversive way or in an overt way. And like I became really sensitive to any little piece of anybody controlling me. Like nobody's going to control this person, right? And I said, huh. And yet, look, they're still in control of you
Yep.
because literally you have no freedom. You can't be around. You're so vigilant for someone telling you what to do that even if they tell you what to do just even a little bit, your
Right.
eye starts to twitch and already you're confined. Or if someone starts to be, on the other hand, kind of like manipulative or passive aggressive, immediately you remove again, you're confined in every direction and you're still at the behest of everyone around you.
Right.
So I said, try this on for a second with your parents. It's one of my favorite brain bridges, Karen. Try this on. Think of the universe, God, creation, or physics. I don't care how you language it. And if none of those agree with you, then just pretend. Okay. Just go with me. Pretend that you believe in one of those things. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So imagine that we're formed of the particulate of that entire universe. And then that entire universe, consider that it we are infinitely loved, unconditionally loved, completely supported, totally like physics, the science of this. Physics will do whatever you want, even if you don't even want to look at the spiritual part of it. Physics will follow anything you want. Any direct, you are totally, it's unconditional. There's no you're a bad person. It is just this body of yesness to wherever you focus. It's so great, right? So imagine that's how much you're loved by all of consciousness. Okay.
Yes.
And now what you do is you project. So that's really what birthed you. What the miracle of aliveness and having a life is really that all of consciousness gave birth to you. So ultimately, that is your parent. My client was nodding their head. They're like, yeah, yeah, I can get that. Like, really, what birthed me had nothing to do with my mother and my father were just conduits. I said, ah, so you got it. And then I said to them, all right, try this on for size. You knew where you came from, a non judgmental, unconditional, consistently supportive, always your greatest fan. That's where you came from. Yep, yep, that's where I came from. Okay. So what you did is you took infinite wisdom, the universe, God, consciousness, whatever, physics, and you projected the characteristics of that which actually did birth you, your parent, let's say, onto three-dimensional fallible human beings. And then you made them wrong for every single way that they weren't what God creation physics is. You just basically kept projecting how they were not that. And then you got upset because of the comparison, not realizing that that's what you were doing. And you made, but are you fallible? Do you make mistakes? The answer was yes. Do I make mistakes? The answer is yes. Does everyone mess up sometimes? The answer is yes and yes and yes. And isn't everyone a function of their past, including your parents? Yes, they are. So are your parents the universe? No. Your parents all of physics? No. Well, then weren't they just showing you who they were based on their past? Yes. And then all of a sudden it sunk in. Oh. So what you're saying is, I've been upset my entire life because I haven't actually understood that this is how human beings are based on what these human beings went through. And although their behavior is suboptimal, I'm wishing that they would be the entire universe to me when they're just human beings going through their own processes. That's exactly what I'm saying, I said. And so all of a sudden it's like, so what does that do to your relationship with your parents and your relationship to people who behave like your parents? Well, basically, everyone goes through this stuff, but they're not God, creation, universe, whatever you want to language it. They are just showing you what they've been through and everything that has happened to them and how their amygdala and neurosynaptic highways are coping with it. And they're just being human. I said, yeah. So how about you stop relating to your parents like they're supposed to be God and just actually accept that this is who they. And the whole conversation basically ended up with such a sense of freedom. And actually, this person phoning their parents and apologizing and saying, I'm sorry, I've been, you know, I get it. Listen, lots of stuff happened in our family. It was suboptimal. It doesn't mean I accept or liked what happened, but I just want you to know that I'm relinquishing my need to consistently judge you for not being God or goddess like, right?
Right.
And
A
so
huge, huge,
you
huge awakening there. Yeah.
can you imagine the amount of the surge of energy and the lack of resistance in the body?
Yeah.
Now the oxygen's flowing, the circulation's going, the mind is way happier because it isn't looking out for the next person that's gonna, do what his parents did.
It it also opens the door for love.
Yeah.
It opens the door for her now to realize that they're doing the best they could with everything they had, but to now
Yes.
love them and for who they are.
Yeah, right. Not who they should be. To
Right.
hate them for who they should have been.
Right.
Right, but that is who they are.
Yeah.
Right? And so when we resist who someone actually is, now, that doesn't mean, Miss Karen, that this person doesn't get to have preferences. Like you and I have preferences of
Sure.
spouses, of how we wish, you know. The funny thing is, though, the instant we realize what I just shared with you is the instant that we get to elicit from other people by not pushing against them. We get to elicit the best from them
Yeah.
as opposed to having them already feel judged before you even walk in the door.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you see that they're not that bad because now they're allowed to be all of themselves,
Right.
right?
It's
So
what we
so
set them up to be. Exactly.
massive opening in the human
Massive.
body for energy. Yeah.
Nice. Wow,
Yeah.
Jennifer, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
There's something else I'd like to tap into if
Mhm.
this is good for you.
Yeah.
Um, so Jennifer's been my mentor for, like I said, for over a year. And last year, I ran the same race I'm running tomorrow. So this podcast is aired on what is today, September. What is today? It's my kid's birthday, September 19th. How could I forget that? Um, and what she offered for me and what she's taught, what she teaches in her programs and in her 3-day events and her embodiment stuff is future activation.
Yes.
And what you offered me last year was, I believe it was every 10 miles. Now, it's not every mile, but every 10 miles. When I get to that, when I start, I do a future activation to that 10-mile mark. And then
Yeah.
when I get there, I do the next future activation to that 10-mile
Right.
mark.
It's so
And I
fun.
kept doing that for, 10 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's 100 miles. I think I messed up and didn't do it for the last 10 because I was having such a blast with my brother that I forgot and we were just laughing
Well,
and
you were
doodles.
already having a great time anyway, so it didn't matter, right?
Right. And so actually the whole race just was fun. It was just absolutely fun, which I plan
Yeah.
to incorporate again this year. So will you, I know that you've kind of alluded to it in a little bit of this conversation, but would you
Mhm.
explain to my guests and people listening to this what it means to go into that future activation?
Sure. I actually find it to be so important to my life that I mean, you haven't experienced this yet, Karen, but I actually took the people that are in one-on-ones with me currently and I put them into WhatsApp groups and we do a future activation together, all my one-on-one clients.
Oh,
We do a
nice.
future activation together every single day except the weekends. So, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Because what happens is, let me first describe as answer your question. So future activation is going into the future, whatever you decide that to be, the end of the day, the end of the week, the
The
end
end
of
of 10
20.
miles.
Yeah, yeah, whatever it is, the end of
Right.
a dinner party, you could future activate a meeting, whatever, okay? So the end of 10 miles for sure. And what happens is you are generating a biology through talking about a future that hasn't yet in in the illusion of time, that hasn't yet happened yet, but you're talking about it like it already has. So you're telling your body this feeling, this beautiful essence of the essence of the yumminess of what's to come is already happening in your biology by speaking about it like it's already happened because your consciousness can't delineate between whether it's actually happening now or whether you're talking about it like it's happening now.
Right.
So a future activation would look something like this. It would look like if I was doing for me, if I was doing a 10K. Okay. So if I was doing a 10K, because I'm Canadian, um, if I was doing a 10K, I would say something like, man, it's the end of the race. I feel so good. I cannot believe, like, this is the first time ever where I feel this hydrated. This, my muscles are so loose. I swear I could do another 10K. No problem whatsoever. I also felt like I met some amazing people along the way. And I felt like some of the conversations with those people actually helped the time go by and it helped me take my attention off whatever was going on in my body. And it was so, it was so amazing. It's like I can't wait to do my next one because this one was so filled with laughter and lucidity and just a knowing. I felt in every step, I felt that I knew my body could do this like I was only running a mile. Like it really felt like a nothing, right? And then I always put at the end, as you know, Karen, or better.
Or better. Yes, I love
Yeah,
that.
because it's
Remember
like,
that, you guys, or better.
yeah,
It's the
because it
next
could
step.
be even better than that. That's just
Yeah,
what my mind could come up with. And you'll notice, Karen, that I did not, there was no attachment.
right.
I'll tell you when when you really mess up is when you start saying things like, yeah, and I want to do, you know, 1 minute miles,
Right. I want to
you
do a
know,
PR at, 30 minutes.
right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like you're not going to run a 3 minute mile,
Right.
on 26 miles,
Right.
right? And so, I mean, you could, metaphysically speaking, it's totally possible. But when you start saying stuff like that, we
Yeah,
start getting attached. And as soon as there's an attachment, all of a sudden consciousness isn't allowed to flow because you're trying to control it. You're trying to tell it what to do.
I
You,
gotcha.
you want the vibe in your
Yes.
future activation. You
Yeah.
want the vibe of what you want to happen and things that you aren't attached to.
Yeah.
Like, I had so many great conversations. You know that could happen.
Right.
So, but it could be the way, but you don't care. Here's the thing. Once you do your future activation, you let it go. Because what could happen is that the scenery is way more beautiful than you thought. And you spend the entire time just like in the beauty and the incredible nature, and nobody talks to you. But it doesn't mean that you did the future activation wrong because the future activation isn't a visualization. It's not like you're attached to the result. It's a future activation to generate the pheromones and the energy. And we're back to your friend, the emotions, Karen,
Yep.
the emotions that are consistent with the kind of race you want to run,
Right.
right? And you don't really care how that happens.
Right. I did that. That was pretty powerful last year because I went to the next 10 miles and I did talk about bringing in the energy of because this is the most beautiful run. The run is from Flagstaff to the Grand Canyon. I mean, come
Oh
on, you
my
guys.
gosh, no way.
Come
That's
on, you guys.
beautiful.
You have to get on my calendar so we can talk about this and we can go deeper into this because anybody who wants to run an amazing race is going to the Grand Canyon. But it was about the energy of me being on the race. It was
Yes.
about the energy of what, because there's so much that goes on in our head. And
Yes.
I let that go. And I
Yes.
was just there. And just
Yes.
it created the gratitude and the beauty and the fun and turning around and looking at Mount Humphrey for 60 miles and then seeing the sunrise in the Grand Canyon. But it was taking every 10 miles and doing that future activation and
Mhm.
totally unattached. And it was beautiful every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet half the things that you future activated didn't happen, and half of them might have, but
Right.
it doesn't
That
really,
doesn't matter though. It's a
it
matter
doesn't.
to me, it was, I think that's the or better.
Tell me.
I think that's or better on the essence that, we're not telling the universe, okay, I want this, this, and
Yeah.
this. No, we're putting the energy out there of feeling it. You have it in your mind, but you're feeling it in your body. You embody
Yes.
this. And then
Yes.
the or better takes it down the avenue that the universe is going to give you, which is the or better.
Right, exactly. The thing is, but here's the paradox of it, Karen, is that when you're actually future activating, consciousness is looking at what you're paying attention to while you're doing it. Like what you're actually communicating what you're interested in feeling most of the time. You could do a future activation in your run that lasts like 10 minutes, right?
Right? Yeah.
So you could do a 10-minute future activation and just generate the best vibe ever and then say or better at the end. The interesting thing is you got lots of time on your hand and right? You got lots of
Right?
time on your hand. And what's happening is in those 10 minutes, the most important thing that's happening is that you're communicating through your action the kind of life you're interested in living.
Nice.
Instead of talking about what is, there's lots of what I like to call, realists that go in circles because realists are just talking about what is. But what you're telling consciousness when you're realistic is you want more of what is. You and I both know the story of that runner that during the run. Have you ever heard that story between Sydney and Melbourne, who was a farmer? Who, have you ever heard this
I
story?
might have. It's not ringing a bell
Yeah,
at the
and they
moment.
invented like the shuffle and that conserves energy. When I ran my first half marathon, um I heard the story from there's a place in Canada called the Running Room from the people at the Running Room because they were the ones that were training us. And I was like, "Huh, you mean?" And this person cut like I think it was 5 hours off the time, like the record time of the race, like 5 hours,
That's a lot.
because they were, I don't know the exact, like someone can correct me, but this is close enough to the story where they would like over vast amounts of space, they would wear these work boots and they basically shuffled along to get I think it was sheep from one, it might have been cows though, to get the animals from one area to the other area, but they would do it for 3 days straight. It was a 3-day thing. So
Wow.
they would hardly get any sleep and they
Right?
just did it the way they did it. And they didn't do it the way all these expensive highfalutin newsletters and all the magazines were saying and you got to have this and that and the other thing and I think it was a he. It was a he. He just did it the way he did it with the cows, you know? And he cut like a ridiculous somewhere between 3 and 5 hours off. I mean, how to cut 3 hours off the record of something
Of
is
course.
insane.
Insane.
Yeah.
Not
So
necessarily heard of. Exactly.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
this was like a quantum leap. And that's because they didn't go in circles. They weren't listening to everybody going in circles about getting the same time and how you always get the same time. That's why future activation takes you on a spiral to running your race in connection to your knowing. And this person ran their race in connection to their
Very
knowing,
nice. Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden, these evolutions happen. So that's the importance of future activation. And plus, as you know, it makes it way more fun
I
anyways.
know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just makes it more fun.
Good energy, Jennifer.
Yeah. Good vibes, good times, good times.
Jennifer,
So
thank you so much. This has been amazing. This has been so amazing. And I really hope everybody who listens to this podcast subscribe to the channel and connect with Jennifer and
yeah.
connect with me too. So, what simple words of advice you can leave with for my guests?
Well, I would say that one of the pieces of advice is this, that we're born to change. The only constant is change.
Yeah,
And so wherever you're at, it can change, but not if you're focused. Like physics is moving forwards. We're flying through space, flying around the sun at 55,000 miles an hour. We're flying through space at like hundreds of millions of miles an hour as a galaxy. Like everything is moving in a spiral, and
Mhm.
it's not going in circles. It's going in a direction. The galaxy doesn't operate on a plane. The whole galaxy is spiraling, right? And so understand that that is the foundation and the basis for our life. You can evolve to anything because nothing that was a minute ago still is. And so you're constantly being given the opportunity to get better and to have more fun and to
Yep.
enjoy even more.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, to know that and then to have the tools to be able to understand that thriving operating system in the land of physics, it's everything. So so relax. Every moment there's a choice point, right? Just
Exactly.
relax. Every moment you can choose.
Yep. Exactly. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jennifer.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm
Thank
so
you so
glad to be
much.
here. I'm so happy to be here, Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly.